might forget, and I might spend my rent money on whatever.
Là-bas, les bûches. Les bûches.
What's the name of this? Is it a ramp?